Systems engaged. Frequencies synchronized. Prepare for incoming transmission. Coming to you from somewhere in the multiverse, this is Robots from Tomorrow. This show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, and as always your podcatcher of choice. For the full archive featuring over 800 episodes of comics and comics-friendly content like interviews, book discussions, and freeform tomfoolery, please go to robotsfromtomorrow.net. Here is your host, Greg.
Hello and welcome to Robots from Tomorrow. My name is Greg. Thanks for joining us. This episode is going live on June 11th, 2026, which means it is dropping just before Charlotte, North Carolina's own HeroesCon, certainly a favorite convention of this very podcast. One of the attractions this year has to be the panel focusing on Power Pulp Comics Collective and Distribution. If I may quote from the panel description, Power Pulp, the self-published comics age has arrived. Power Pulp Comics is a collective of the best self-publishers in the business. This panel will feature the work of Tony Farrow, Jesse Lonergan, Jamie Jones, Jim Rugg, Audra Stang, Rick Lopez, Scott Gerard Rule, Nick Forker, Anthony Haddix, Chris Anderson, and announce their latest member. See what the future of comics looks like through your new third eye. Q&A to follow, time permitting. That panel will be on Saturday the 13th at 4 p.m. in room 207 CD. If you're at the show, you will definitely want to check it out. Unfortunately, I will be at the show and want to check it out, but I can't because I'm hosting the Men of Letters panel featuring John Workman and Tom Orzechowski that same day at 4:30 in room 208. Thanks a lot, Andy. A kid, because I love. However, don't cry for me too much because, as you can tell from the episode title, I got my own dose of Power Pulp goodness and I'm sharing it for everybody who can't be in room 207 at HeroesCon this Saturday. Both events have CEO Chris Anderson, but today's show also has Corinne Halbert. So take that, Charlotte. Yeah. It's still pretty much a win-win situation, whichever combination of Power Pulp options you have decided to take. Coming up later this month is an interview with cartoonist editor Hazel Newlevant about their new OGN, Queer and How We Got Here, covering their journey of self-discovery alongside a personal tour of queer history that feels intimate and expansive in equal measure. And we also have an episode focusing on the Stop Project 2025 webcomic. That one has political scientist Dr. Dan Cassino and comics writer and Stop Project 2025 contributor Greg Pak on to discuss the legacy and lessons this particular protest comic can teach us, as well as how comics can help us survive in the times we find ourselves in. But right now, sit back, relax, and enjoy my Power Pulpy chat with Chris Anderson and Corinne Halbert. Readers go to the comic shop to get their comics, but the road those comics take from the creators' drawing tables to the shops has changed a lot in the last near century, 100 years or so. I talked with documentary filmmaker Wes Eastin back in February about the comic shop retailer side of things, but today I'm flipping the dial and I'm going to the creative side because we are talking to two members of the Power Pulp Comics Collective and Distribution Company group. I should have written that in my notes. We have CEO Chris Anderson and cartoonist Corinne Halbert here to talk about this wonderful idea that we have mentioned on the show. I've had Jim Rugg on 2 months ago now-ish, and we talked about that with him. But now we're going to dive back into Power Pulp because I feel like it is a growing answer to the question every creator has to face in their career. How do I get my work out there? Chris, Corinne, how you doing?
Great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm better now that I get to sit here and talk comics after a long day of work. So we're going to be focusing on Power Pulp today, but to do that fairly, we need to take a second to hit some of the major beats that got us to needing something like Power Pulp. So if you will indulge me a little longer, I want to run down a bit of a checklist of events here to see if my understanding of this matches yours. So incredibly broad and oversimplified terms. In the 1930s, let's say comics, they're sold through magazine distributors on newsstands. 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. We start to see comic specialty distributors emerge. Capital City, Diamond, New Media, and they start selling to specialty shops. We see the rise of comic book shops in like the 70s, the 80s, into the 90s. The 90s, of course, we have the speculator boom. 1996, Marvel buys Heroes World. That turns out to be a complete disaster. This multiple distribution system basically implodes down to Diamond. And so Diamond is then the non-monopoly monopoly that's left standing. We've got that situation in place. But then around 2010 or so, we have the beginning of Comixology. We have digital distribution. We have Kickstarter, the crowdfunding option. We have Scholastic Books, graphics. We have a real push with manga and then quote-unquote graphic novels. Bookstores become a real market for comics in a way they hadn't been before. So around 2020, COVID, Diamond takes a real hit. Comic shops take a real hit. Diamond files for bankruptcy in 2024. Amazon buys Comixology in 2019 and does nobody any favors with that. Coming out of that, we have Lunar Distribution taking a share of the Diamond market. Penguin Random House coming in as another distribution option. Ingram continues to dominate this book market distribution, but none of those are accessible to the level of comic booking that you guys and girls find yourselves in. What sort of picture does that paint in terms of what led up to you saying, hey, this Power Pulp thing needs to happen?
I guess I'll speak to that. Yeah, Corinne?
Yeah.
I think you did a really great job of giving a quick overview of the history of distribution there. The one thing that all of those different distribution models, for the most part, in the 80s, there was more of an opportunity for what I'm about to speak of. But for the most part, if you were a comics creator who published your own work, which basically means you have entire creative control over it and pay for the print run yourself, and it is up to you to get that book in front of people without a publisher backing you up, there was no way to get your books into shops. Even when Diamond had basically the monopoly over it, in order to get your books distributed, if you were a self-published creator, you had to show that you had books coming out regularly and from other creators. And so there was a lot of discussion, I think, when I would go to conventions amongst creators, the publishers that were out there that allowed you to retain your IP were dwindling. The books that they were putting out were becoming less and less. And so the ability to maintain control over your properties and your IP was it was becoming harder and harder. And it was getting to a point where it was sort of like we were kind of desperate for ways to get the books out there. If you didn't sell them just, on social media through your website, you had to sell them at conventions, and those were places where people who frequent shops don't always go. So it was hard to get your work in front of large amounts of people. So if you do a print run of your books, you're lucky to sell a few hundred, but there's potential to sell thousands of your book. And I got the idea that if we got a group of self-publishing cartoonists together, we could sort of make this fake publisher and go to Diamond and be like, we're under this umbrella of what eventually became Power Pulp, and you sort of act as a publisher and get in that way. Well, while we were coming up with this, formulating the rest of this idea as a collective to help each other out in other ways, Diamond completely imploded. And so we had to pivot and figure out what we were going to do. And it became very clear very quickly that we needed to figure out how to distribute ourselves. So that was really kind of how all of the pieces sort of fell into place. We got together and we tried to break the model as much as possible. And then the other thing is, like, if you did go to a publisher or to another distribution company, if one did pop up, and there were a couple, but they're going to take a chunk out of your profit. And as a self-publisher, your profit margins are so thin already. And so when we started out, we really, really tried our best to not take any money from the creators that joined us, but it became pretty clear pretty quickly that just operational costs we were going to have to take a little bit, but still it is a third, if not more, or less, I should say,
Mm,
of what the other middlemen that are out there would take from us. So it's run by all of us. Therefore, we're not paying anybody to run it. So we save it there. And then, we only take 10% off of sales for operational costs. So
mhm.
it's as lucrative for the creators, us creators, as we could possibly make it.
Okay. So you were there at the
Mhm.
beginning. Corinne, if my understanding is correct, you were pitched this
Yes.
proposal, this idea. You jumped on board. How did that pitch get to you, and what did it sound like?
Chris emailed me and laid out the vision, the plans, and I am like a chronic overthinker.
Hmm.
And, I saw this as a really good opportunity. And
Hmm.
instead of just overthinking, I just decided I've been trying new endeavors as I continue to age in this world. And I just said, you know what? This sounds like a good opportunity. Instead of trying to overthink every little last aspect of it,
Hmm.
I'm just going to go for it and see what happens.
Okay.
There's some other really great indie distributors. My friend Austin English runs Domino Books. John
Hmm.
Porcellino has his.
Hmm.
They have their own kind of unique models that are their own thing. This
Hmm.
sounded more like a collective. And in this world where it's really hard to be an independent artist, I do believe there is a lot of strength in numbers. And
Hmm.
if you can find your like-minded weirdos,
Hmm.
hell yeah.
Yeah, yeah. A collective of individuals seems oxymoronic, but also just kind of perfect because nobody
Right.
knows what you need rather than somebody who needs exactly the same thing in their own way.
Mhm.
So how long had you been cartooning before this came along? You had a body of work,
Yeah.
obviously, before you got the knock.
Yes.
Um, were there like specific things that you had been running into in your career that made the Power Pulp thing particularly attractive?
Yeah.
Other than just like, hey, it's the clubhouse. Please come join the clubhouse, and we will all help each other.
I think the biggest thing for me, on top of just seeing who was involved, feeling like I clicked, it made sense to
Hmm.
be part of this group, is as an independent artist who has a day job, I work 3 days a week. I've been doing comics since like about 2009. A
Okay.
ton of self-publishing. I worked at Quimby in Chicago for 6 years. I now work at Forbidden Planet in New York City. I
Hmm.
have literally like 12 jobs. There is something really helpful, appealing, and comforting to know that I can just ship a box of my comics and not spend hours and hours reaching out to stores, shipping them individually myself, keeping track of all that documentation for my taxes. I'm spread pretty thin and I perpetually take on too many projects. I've gotten a lot better. There's a lot of power in saying no. And I don't mean that in like a snotty way. I
No,
just
no, no.
it's
Self-preservation.
have to learn to say no because if 10 people want your energy and you only have energy for 2 people, if you say yes to the 10, you're really shooting yourself in the foot. So for
Hmm.
me, it is really wonderful because it helps me with time, energy, my sanity, because I have too many jobs.
Hmm. You bring up an interesting point. The retail aspect of this, not the distributing to retailers, but your understanding of retail. One of the things I find interesting about independent creators or cartoonists is they understand that they have two audiences to serve: the readership of their work, but they also have the comic shops as well, right? They're literally selling to the comic shop. Let me go back to Chris first.
Sure.
When you're putting Power Pulp together and you're figuring out like how to make that attractive to retailers, what is that calculus like?
I kind of think of the retailer as just an extension of our business. We are in the same business together. So
Hmm.
your standard distributor may not have that personal relationship with the comic shop, and every comic shop is different. Every
Mhm.
comic shop owner is different. They all have different needs or feel like they have different needs. But every time that I would cold call a retailer, which I've since learned is the retailers don't love telephone calls because they're very
Yeah.
busy and move to emails. But I would tell them, I was like, when you're dealing with Power Pulp, if you have a question or if you need anything and you email us, you are emailing the creators. Anything that we can do to help you sell books, we are willing to do. And just that connectivity and that tactile relationship that we try to build has really served us quite well, I think. There's still room to grow in forging those relationships. Still a
Mhm.
little bit of convincing with some shop, and a lot of shops have opened up wide and reaped the benefits because they have made several orders, since
Mhm.
they done their first one of large orders too. So those that have dipped their toe in seem to be finding that the model that we've created is working for them.
Yeah. I feel like I cheated a little bit because I made a individual purchase from the Power Pulp site. I got a stack of comics here. I live about 5 minutes away from Atomic Books.
Mm.
So
Ooh.
I could very well have gone down and done that. I don't think they have like a Power Pulp section. So maybe for this, I wanted to go to where it was a little more curated and go through that. It's an embarrassment of riches here for a nice mailing box that's got a Power Pulp stamp on it, which I would not have gotten at Atomic Books. So
Yeah. Atomic Books has
everything,
been a great partner. They've placed several orders from us. So,
I love Atomic.
yeah.
yeah.
I'm looking at my stack of stuff, and it would all be stuff that I would see at Atomic. And just really quick, unfortunately, I did not pick up anything from Chris because I was not paying attention when I was placing my orders. But I have Ninja number, there's no number on it, from the Coates Brothers. I have Jim Rugg's Adults Only zine. I have Corinne's Scorpio Venus Rising #1. I have the first volume of Rick Veitch's Rare Bit Fiends. I have Spakow #2, and I have Dummy #2. So we've got zines, we have small comics, we have Dummy, which is a glossy as fuck magazine, square bound comics magazine, and that was not even a sampling of stuff that you guys have on the site. How many creators do you have on your roster right now?
There is a group that is coming in right now, which will extend our number to about 50. So it has grown quite a bit. I
Mhm.
think we need to slow down a little bit just to catch our breath, but we are constantly getting people who are submitting things to us and then also reaching out when we discover creators that we think would really fit the bill and are in the business for the long haul and have interesting work. And we don't want to dilute it too much. And since it is so many of us, it's just us creators that are running the whole show. We can't take on too many people at one time, but we want to have only the best, which is obviously subjective, but
Yeah.
as a group, we try to decide who comes in and then decide how many people we can bring in at one time.
One of the things on the website mentions that Power Pulp is a collective of creators and not distributors.
Mhm.
Um, the second half of that sentence, or the sentence right after it, it says all members participate in the functioning of the collective. What does that look like in practice?
There is basically the group of what we call the founders, the first four people who got together with this idea with me, which is James and John Coates and Jamie Jones. John and James, they're twin brothers, and they live in the same town, and they take care of all the shipping. They run the website, things like that. Jamie is very good with words. And
Mhm.
so Jamie takes care of much of the PR side of things. Everybody else is sort of asked to contribute what they can. Everybody's got some special things. Some people are very good at PR. Some people have
Mhm.
history of other jobs that they have done that position them really well for things. But mostly people are just asked to make sure that they repost other people's work so that we can broadcast the work of other people out there. So whether they be a creator that most people have heard of or somebody that's new who has just amazing work,
Mhm.
there's light that is shown on all of it. And so, most of the heavy lifting is done by just a few people, but everybody else that's involved does a little something. And I don't think that there's really anybody in the group that, if approached by another member to help them with something, that they wouldn't drop what they were doing to help them with. So we all kind of just have each other's back, and we shoot ideas around for how to bring printing costs down or amplify ourselves out there to a wider world, and come up with some pretty creative ideas. It's funny what happens when you bring a bunch of creatives together.
Yeah, the math just works out. You're just going to increase the creativity and we all benefit. So Jesse Lonergan is one of the recent acquisitions. Describe, if you can, or as much as you can, what that onboarding process looks like.
Well, it depends. A lot of the people that come on, when we have a batch of people that come on, that is submissions that are sent in to our email. And we put that into a Google folder, which is then shared with all the rest of the members. Everybody is encouraged to look through everything, see what they like. We come up with a number of people that we can manage bringing in per quarter. And then we do a blind vote, really. And however many we decide can make it in, those, the top ones that are voted on, we email them, let them know, and then we set up a call with every creator, to a video call with every creator, just to kind of make it more like, this is real. This is, we're not just words in an email kind of thing. And then try to just encourage people to interact. We have a private Discord that we can talk on and do things. We're still figuring this out too, so it's changing every single time that we do a vote, and the potential for this thing is bigger than what it is right now. And we want to bring in as many different kinds of voices as possible out there, and we want to get everybody to be able to interact more. And it's hard because also we're independent creators. We're used to being in our little caves and working by ourselves and not counting on or utilizing anybody else. But I think it's like a matter of us training ourselves to make this thing work to the best of its ability. But to your question, that's how we bring people on, is it's usually a vote of everybody. And then somebody like Jesse Lonergan comes along and says, hey, I would like to join Power Pulp. I remember you talked to me about this, at Heroes Con last year. Is that still an open invitation? Well, of course, he's one of the best people working right now. So we basically will email everybody and say, hey, we're thinking about bringing this person on. If there's any issues with that, please voice it now. Otherwise, we're gonna hold them
speak
in.
now or forever hold your peace.
Yeah, because I mean, there's all kinds of people. You just never know if you're gonna bring in somebody who could be a problem.
Right. Or people have histories that not everybody knows about, and there could just be things.
Yeah, we try to be mindful of that.
Going a little broader here for a second, Corinne, who is the Power Pulp creator that you are like the most excited about most recently? The last name that you're just like, ooh.
Probably Jim Rugg and John Kelly, because I love both of them. And Jim Rugg did a pinup for my book, Acid Nun. He's just such a good dude, and he's such an incredible artist. I'm a big fan of his work. And then John Kelly is just lovely. I really love what he's doing with Dummy. And I feel like comics used to have more figures like this. People that would compile, obviously we still have the Comics Journal, and we have 4-Color Apocalypse, and we have some things, but all of that has really dried up compared to if you look at the 80s, 90s. I just think it's really cool to have both of those guys on there.
Yeah, that I should not have picked up my copy of Dummy to flip through it as you were mentioning him, because that is podcasting kryptonite. There was no right answer for that question, but certainly Jim is I almost said a machine, but I mean, he is just almost annoyingly good at so many things. Yeah, I completely get behind those answers. Chris, I would possibly throw the question out to you. I don't know if being like the CEO, if I don't want to necessarily put you into a position, but if there is somebody maybe on the list that you are the most surprised that things worked out, that they could sort of fall under your umbrella, is there?
I'll tell you, when I got up one day and went to my email, and the title of the email is "I would like to join Power Pulp," and the sender is Rick Veach. That was an interesting morning.
Yeah.
That's huge. I mean,
Yeah.
Rick was one of the creators on probably the greatest comic run of all times, as far as I'm concerned,
Mm-hmm.
and godfather of self-publishing, really. I mean, he's been self-publishing for forever and just knocking it out of the park with his work. That
Mm-hmm.
was amazing. I have to echo Corinne with John Kelly too. I mean, I'm on the phone with him for like 4 hours at a time sometimes, and by the time I'm done talking to him, I only want to talk more. He's one of the most fascinating people I've ever met. But it's great. There's a lot of people on there, like Shelley Bond,
Mm-hmm.
obviously one of the most legendary editors out there. And I was lucky enough to be working with her on a book at Dark Horse. And then I'm working with Jim on stuff. But like, if anybody has an editorial question, they can just email Shelley. If anybody has a
Right.
design question, they can
They've
email
got Jim
Jim.
Rugg on speed dial. And yeah.
Exactly. John Kelly, he used to be head of PR for all of the NBA. He's like,
Ooh.
amongst other things, he's probably one of the most fascinating people I've ever met. So if you got a PR question or an idea, need an idea, he's right there to bounce it off of. So we've just got this tremendous group. Everybody that's involved in
Mm-hmm.
this thing is a stellar cartoonist and worth checking out. We've got just a wild variety of people, and I guarantee you, if you pick up a Power Pulp book, you're gonna love it and gonna want to seek out more of that creator's work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that speaks to a Power Pulp book can both have an identity and not have to fit to an identity.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Just going to the website and scrolling through stuff and seeing work that has a voice, not the same voice. Like you get to have a chorus rather than a clamor. Chris, you said you spend 75% of your day going over emails and stuff and 25% on like actual creative work. I guess my question originally was, did Power Pulp change that math? And probably it sounds like maybe it hasn't, but do you feel better about the 75%? Does Power Pulp help you feel better about the time that you're away from the drawing board because that energy is going to something larger than yourself?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, building this thing is probably one of the most important things that I'll ever do with my life, to be
Mm.
honest with you. I mean, it's not entirely altruistic. I do definitely gain something from this as a self-publisher, but I do feel good that having seen something that was missing from the industry and then actually taking action to get it going, to set the spark, and everybody else that has come in has been the fire behind it. I'm very proud of the work that everybody is doing, and it's absolutely worth it. When I do get back to the drawing board, I'm focused. Let's just
Mm.
say, I know that I need to hit my deadlines and I got to get this done, and it's got to look good. And instead of stopping every 5 minutes to scroll, now I'm just diving in and getting it done. So it's all working out. And as time moves on, it's getting into more of a flow. It's not taking me 75% of the day to do Power Pulp stuff anymore.
All right.
It's like I can devote like 2 hours to it as opposed to the 4 or whatever that I was doing before.
All
So
right.
it's getting easier.
So as independent creators, you do have to spend more mental energy than you would like on non-creative things. Before Power Pulp, was there any particular things that helped you navigate that sort of non-creative stuff, even if it's just like time management or tips that help you manage the stuff around the creating so that you can just create? Maybe.
Is it okay if I go
Please.
first?
Yeah.
Yes, save me.
I feel very lucky because I have worked retail since I was like 14 years old,
Mhm.
and I'm very good with customer service. And with that, you have a lot of direct one-on-one
Mm.
and with groups, communication with people. You have to be friendly. You're trying to sell things. And so I saw the writing on the wall many years ago that like you got to promote yourself. Now
Mm.
it's wonderful to be part of Power Pulp, and I get promoted gloriously through them, which I'm incredibly grateful for, but I
Mhm.
also have to do my own self-promotion. So I have put a lot into my Instagram. That's for artists, I think that is one of the best platforms. I had a Twitter, I got rid of my Twitter because I just can't deal with Elon
Mhm.
Musk anymore.
Right.
So I have a Blue Sky now, but I have a Facebook. Instagram, I have focused on doing a lot of self-promotion,
Mhm.
and I've been lucky enough since I started that early, that
Mhm.
bigger accounts took a shine to me. They promoted me. It's sort of like a snowball effect. So I have had to learn over the years to not overgive, to say no. I really schedule out all my time. And this includes fun time with my partner. That's important to me. I want to have a good life and I love him. So I want to spend time with him. So finding that balance and not continually getting to this place of burnout. There was a couple years there that I would just obsessively work myself to the point of shreds, like just
Mm.
beyond burnout. And then it takes me a couple months to bounce back from that. And so I'm in a lot better position now, thankfully. But that's a learning experience. It's a learning
Mhm.
curve. It's taken me a long time to figure out what balance to strike. And even as things that sound as silly as, okay, I work my 8 hours at my day job, I don't have energy to actually draw when I get home, but maybe I can lay in bed and do some self promotion, or maybe I can
Mhm.
fix
Mhm.
my website. So, like, I'm kind of always working towards the art career, the vision, getting
Mhm.
my voice out there, trying to send the messages that I want to the world with myself and my art.
Mhm.
Yeah. There was a time when if you were a cartoonist working in comics, you either worked for Marvel or DC, and basically that was it. You would go into the office, punch in, you would draw your page, you would go home. Those days are over. Now you need to be a promoter, you need to be a television broadcaster on YouTube. You have to do so much just to make it work. And a lot of cartoonists are very introverted people by nature,
Yeah.
and those that are successful figure out how to not be. I was a teacher for 18 years and a musician, and so I would put myself out there in front of
Mhm.
people and had to creatively come up with solutions for things as a teacher and manage people and administration and children and things like that. So I think that put me in a unique position to be able to do things like that. But especially as a self-publishing cartoonist, there's so much work to do. I'm diagnosed with ADHD, and it was a real struggle in the beginning
Mhm.
to be like, all right, my book is coming out. Oh, wait, I didn't line up any interviews about the book, or I didn't line up anything at
Right.
all. The
Yeah.
book
Yeah.
is now the book is here. Now it's too late. And then you put it out and it goes boom, it
Yeah.
just bottoms out without any of the work before it. But one of the great things that I think about that we've built with Power Pulp is the ability to not completely take the burden of having to do those things off of ourselves, but
Mhm.
it has amplified it so that I think we're seeing larger returns in the work that we were already putting into ourselves. And like it's just like amplifying each other's work has really proven to make our lives a little bit easier.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
the ADHD thing, man, I was diagnosed 12 years ago, well into my adulthood. But the time blindness, thinking about Power Pulp, I think one of the benefits is the body doubling, right? Like you're interacting with people, so you're seeing what they're doing, and that could remind you of like, oh, shoot, I need to do that particular thing for like my work. The whole like now, not now thing. You're like, oh, I've got this thing coming out of this, and yeah, I need to get to that. I need to get to that, and then you realize, oh shoot, it's here, and I didn't do all of those things. So Power Pulp as a body doubling slash pressure prompting, but in a nice way type of what's the word I'm looking for? Aid. We'll just go with aid. Yeah, it sounds like a really good thing. Um, if you woke up tomorrow and there was a group called Energy Enclave, So same model as Power Pulp, different name, different city, different characters, but essentially like Power Pulp with a different skin over it. Would that feel like a success? How would that feel? Where like your model has basically been duplicated.
I encourage it,
Okay.
honestly. I mean, I don't know how you feel, Corinne. I definitely encourage it. I think that it would be a success. Like I always said from the beginning, like we're just showing you a different way of doing things. There's no reason that another group of cartoons can't do this, but
Mhm.
just come to us too. You know, you
Yeah.
could. But I think it's healthy to have multiple models. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Corinne.
I think it's definitely a marker of success.
Mm.
In an ideal world, especially if they just literally use you as a template, at
Mhm.
some point they would say, "We were inspired by Power Pulp." That's my only caveat. I
Yeah.
think that's gonna happen, it's always happened. What do they say? Great artists steal, whatever. I've had
Yeah.
literally people, like,
Yeah.
my shit left and right, so I'm
Yeah.
a little sensitive to that
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
I guess I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're being bootleg.
And of
Yeah.
course,
Yeah.
I have been inspired by other artists as well. I
Mhm.
do think as we
Oh,
keep
yeah.
going forward, people will get ideas from other people, sort of
Mhm.
ape their work, and then act like that other person never existed, which is
Yeah.
fine, but, like, it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah. It's a
annoying.
choice, but yeah. But no,
It's
like
just
if
annoying. That's
yeah,
all.
but credit where credit was due. But it was essentially not a franchise, but another instance of your idea put into the world. I was curious how that would strike you, and maybe even if it was successful enough, would you? I don't know necessarily how it says. Would you ever consider like stepping away from Power Pulp and going over to that? Not just in terms of like, hey, somebody else has this thing set up, so now I can get more of that 25% of creative time back, or would staying with Power Pulp with the thing that you started, does that kind of make any sense?
Yeah,
If
yeah.
there's
No,
necessarily a question there.
you're making sense. You're making
Thank
sense.
God. Okay.
How to answer that though is a good
And
question.
there may not be an answer. Like,
We can't take on every great creator that's out there, you know. If there's other groups that want to ape the model and do the same thing, more power to them. In fact, that would be great. And I bet there would even be a way that we could work together to make it even stronger.
like an open
Uh,
license or Creative
yeah,
Commons
sure.
or that
You
sort
know,
of
we do,
that sort of thing.
obviously, we want Power Pulp to be like a symbol of quality, and we want to grow Power Pulp. Anytime you see the logo, we want you to think of our creators and we want you to think about just great comics.
Hmm.
But if there's other things out there that are the same as us, I think that's great. And our creators that are with us,
Hmm.
there's no binding contract. Anybody can go or come however they want to. If they want to
That's
take their stuff
interesting.
and put it up at a publisher, if
Uh-huh.
that makes sense for them, please do it. We want
Right.
everybody to be successful. That's the most important thing. We want to create a world where cartoonists can make a living off of their creations. That's the
Hmm.
bottom line of Power
Uh,
Pulp. So,
that,
however
huh.
it happens, will I jump ship? No, because this is my
Well,
baby.
you're the
Yeah.
CEO. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. A couple of things. One, of course, people will recognize your logo because it is a very striking logo. I
Sanjay
realize this
Royale,
is.
yep.
I realize this is, of course, not a video podcast, but it'll be in the featured thumbnail or whatever. It'll be attached to this in some way, shape, or
Mhm.
form. Getting back to that sort of non-exclusive thing, Corinne, your book, the Scorpio Venus Rising,
Yes.
1 through 5 are on
Mhm.
Power Pulp, but
Yes.
tell us a little bit about the collection coming up.
So I self-published the single issues. That's what I did with Acid Nun, which is also published by Silver Sprocket 2022. That was my debut graphic novel. And the story is complete. So it's a 5-issue arc.
Hmm.
And Sprocket will publish it as a collected hardcover.
Hmm.
And I could not be more excited. This is my first attempt at something a little more towards like an all ages thing.
Hmm.
I'm sort of known for my erotic horror artwork, which is very adults only.
Hmm.
So this is I wanted to challenge myself, and B, it was just the story that I just really had to tell at this time in my life. There's a lot of tarot imagery, there's a lot of occult, esoteric knowledge, mythology embedded in this story,
Hmm.
and a woman has had some difficulties trying to gain her power back and learn to have healthy friendships, relationships, and it's a pretty fun kind of psychedelic journey through her subconscious and this invented universe that I created. So I'm really, really happy with it. I got a really great review from Ryan Carey recently, Four Color Apocalypse for issue 5, and that really just meant so much to me because he's such a amazing writer and huge comic fan, and for him to say that he felt like I stuck the landing, it just gave me a great boost of confidence. It comes out September 2nd, and it'll debut at SPX, Small Press Expo in Bethesda, Maryland. And then I have
Yeah.
to figure out the other, I've applied to some other smaller press expos. I've applied to NYCC. I did NYCC last year, so that's great. Hopefully they want me back. And then, I'll try and do a few signings. I
Hmm.
don't really have the money to do some insane 10
Tour.
bookstore tour, but I will
Yeah.
hit some New York locations and whatever makes sense. And then, it'll go beyond September. So
Yeah. Yeah.
hopefully I can line up some stuff maybe in October, November. I'll
Hmm.
have like a release party in New York City, but I
Yeah.
gotta sit down and actually figure all that stuff out.
Yeah. 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 Chris, what is your convention schedule or
Yeah,
like?
yeah. I pick probably like 3 or 4 shows that I'll travel to throughout the year.
Okay.
I'll be at Heroes and as well as Rhode Island.
Okay.
I'm actually from Minneapolis, but I will not be at the Odd Mart show. And yeah, I try to do at least one East Coast, one of every major
Hmm.
spot in the country outside of LA. And then there's always like I feel like every weekend there's some sort of great show in LA that's going on.
Where's the best place to be able to follow Power Pulp stuff? Is it like the Instagram or just the site or?
Yeah, the Instagram is great. I believe the link tree is also in the Instagram bio. The Instagram is pretty on top of letting people know what all the different members of the group is doing. And then the website obviously is the place to go to have a preview of
Uh,
a couple pages. One kind of important thing is to know is that it's very easy to spend $200 on PowerPoint books. Your
yes.
cart will build up pretty quickly, and if you do get up to $200, the shipping is free. So keep that in mind.
Okay. I made the mistake of actually clicking on the site right now, and I say mistake because I'm scrolling, and it is even worse than picking up the copy of Dummy and flipping through it. I'm just scrolling, and
You
nope,
got sucked in, huh?
I did, and it's like, oh, it's color, then it's black and white, and it's this and so many things. Okay, I am literally closing that window. Goodbye. Okay, so I do I have anything else? I guess not. I really should have thought of a better ending for this.
I like this ending.
Okay, will this be sort of like the Seinfeld, completely anticlimactic,
Yeah.
just sort of ending? So there you have it, folks. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you're given the opportunity to do so, because it really helps us out, and we would super appreciate it. So until we meet again, hopefully soon, my name is Greg. Stay safe, keep enjoying those funny books, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you for listening. Systems disengaged.